Okay, so you know how everyone's heard of the Black Dahlia, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
But today, we're not trying to solve it. Not exactly.
Okay.
We're going deeper. Like, WHY is this case, almost 80 years old, still so fascinating.
That's the good stuff.
It is. Think about Elizabeth Short, just a young woman, comes to Southern California, wants that Hollywood life.
Classic story. Kinda.
But it turns dark, like really dark. This isn't just a murder case.
No, not at all. I think it gets to us because, well, on some level, we all kind of get that ambition.
Right.
You want to make a name for yourself. But there's that flip side. What if it goes wrong? What if the dream becomes a nightmare?
And the details, they're brutal. Imagine you're just walking down the street.
Normal day.
Right, totally. It's 1947, Leimert Park. You've got your kid with you, sunny, nice out, and then you see it. It's Betty Bersinger, actually, who finds her.
Oh, wow.
Not just dead, bisected, posed. It's like something out of a movie, but way worse.
That's the thing, right? That level of violence, it's almost staged. It messes with your head, makes you think anyone could be a victim. No one's safe.
And the location adds to it, you know? Right on the edge of Hollywood. Glamour, but then this darkness hidden underneath.
Total contrast. It's like the dark side of the American dream, all laid bare.
Right.
And Elizabeth Short, she kind of embodies all that, right? She was given the nickname Black Dahlia after that movie, Blue Dahlia.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about that.
So you have that connection to the era, the whole film noir thing. And it's ironic, right? She wanted to be in the movies, be someone, and in the end, she becomes famous, but because of this horrible death.
In that nickname, it just makes you think, what was she like?
Right, like, what was her personality? We only know her as a victim. It's sad, makes you wonder, what if she had actually made it? Could we know her name at all?
Now, one thing that gets me, the way she was, you know, cut, it had to be someone who knew what they were doing.
Yeah, definitely. The cops back then, they thought maybe a doctor or even a busher.
Precise, yeah. But here's the thing, there was a surgeon lived just a block away from her.
Really?
But they didn't really look into him. Like, how? That just seems crazy to me.
Well, you gotta remember, this is way before DNA, all the fancy forensics they have now. Back then, it was more about eyewitnesses, clues at the scene, a lot of gut feeling, you know.
So maybe he just didn't fit their idea of what the killer would be.
Possibly. Or maybe there wasn't enough to tie him to it directly. Or who knows, maybe they messed up. We might never know for sure. And that just makes it even more mysterious, you know? What if they'd had the tools we have today? Would it be a different story?
Yeah, it makes you think, would they have caught him? Or would it still be this unsolved case, the Black Dahlia's killer, just a ghost story in LA?
Exactly. It's a mystery that just keeps on giving, unfortunately. It really makes you wonder. But this case, it's not just about the forensics, right?
Oh, definitely not. It says something about Los Angeles back then, after the war. The whole vibe.
Absolutely. That post-war world, a lot of upheaval, change.
And we have Kim Cooper to thank for some real insights on that. She does these true crime tours in LA, knows her stuff.
Oh, cool. What you gotta say?
So get this, she points out that from where they found Elizabeth Short's body, you can actually see the Hollywood sign.
Whoa, that's heavy.
Right. Like, talk about contrast, her dream right there, but she never made it. Just boom, this awful end.
It kind of makes that dark side of Hollywood feel, I don't know, even darker. It's like a warning sign almost. For every star, there's tons who just disappear.
And Cooper calls them transient butterfly characters, all these people like Elizabeth Short, coming to LA, hoping but not really finding a place.
Makes sense. Right after the war, things were crazy. Soldiers coming back, everything changing, tons of people moving, hoping for a fresh start.
A lot of chaos, yeah. And it wasn't easy either. LA had a bad housing crisis back then. Still does, really.
Oh yeah, Cooper mentioned that. It's kind of wild how history repeats itself.
It's true. Elizabeth Short stuck in that mess. Makes you think, are things really that different now?
I mean, look, population booming then, same now. Not enough places to live, people struggling. It's the same cycle, just different clothes.
So sad. Makes her story feel less like history, more like, I don't know, a cautionary tale.
Yeah, and it reminds us even today, these aren't just statistics. These are people with lives, hopes.
Yeah.
And sometimes they get crushed by these bigger forces.
And you can't forget Elizabeth Short. She lost someone in World War II. It's mentioned in one of the sources.
Oh, wow. That adds a whole other layer.
It does. A lot of folks were dealing with loss back then. Makes her story hit even harder, you know? Like, she represents this whole generation trying to rebuild but carrying this weight.
Definitely. That war messed people up. The grief, the uncertainty. Elizabeth Short, she was trying to make it, but also maybe running from that pain. We don't know.
It's all connected, I guess. But here's another thing that's always bugged me about this case.
What's that?
The journalists. They really went all in on her story, but kind of messed up too.
How so?
Well, they made her famous, sure. But because she was dead, like, it's tragic, right? Her life didn't matter until she was gone.
It's like, does anyone get noticed unless something horrible happens?
Right. It's messed up. Makes you think, do we even see people when they're alive? Or just the tragedy?
Deep thought, man.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to be paying more attention to the folks around us. You know, their stories, their struggles, not just when it's too late.
That's the truth. Every life has value, whether they're in the spotlight or not. It's true. Makes you wonder, would we even know her name if this hadn't happened?
Yeah, it's kind of chilling, right? Another face in the crowd. She wanted to be an actress, but...
Maybe she just wouldn't have made it. Or maybe she would have, but we'd never know.
Exactly. Los Angeles, it chews people up, spits them out. So many stories never get told.
And that's kind of what's so haunting about this whole thing. It's not just the Black Dahlia. It's all the other lives lost, forgotten.
You know, it's like...
Yeah.
We're so focused on the big names, the stars, but everyone has a story, right?
Totally. And those everyday stories, they matter too. Maybe even more, sometimes.
This case, it kind of forces you to see that. Past the headlines, the gore, there's a person there. A whole life.
It's a good reminder. We get caught up in the spectacle, but we gotta remember, everyone we meet, they're living a whole drama of their own.
Absolutely. And that's a good thing to keep in mind. Walking around, you never know what someone's going through, what their story is.
Well, this has been, I don't know, pretty intense, but also really fascinating. We went through the details, the history, even how it connects to stuff happening right now. But I think the biggest takeaway is we can't forget the human side of things.
I'm with you on that. It's easy to get desensitized, but every case, every headline, there's a person at the heart of it.
So last thought for everyone listening, if you could go back, meet Elizabeth Short, what would you want to ask her? What was she like? What were her hopes, her fears? Would knowing her story change how we see this whole case?
That's a powerful question to leave folks with. Makes you think.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been real, and hopefully it'll make everyone out there look at the world and the people in it a little differently.
I hope so too. There's always more to learn, more to understand.